Have you ever noticed this moment? When the room is full of people who speak loudly, laugh confidently, and occupy space, as if they were born entitled to it, and you stand slightly apart, quiet, observing, and somewhere inside you something knows, with absolute certainty, that you see what's happening more deeply, understand more subtly, feel more precisely. Yet power flows to them, not to you. This is not an accident. It is not injustice. It is a pattern described with cold precision. Over 500 years ago, by Niccolo Machiavelli, so clearly, so honestly, that his books were banned, burned, and feared, not because they were evil, but because they contained no lies, only truth. About power, about human nature, about how the world actually works. Beneath the comforting illusions, sold to us since childhood, there is a certain kind of person you may have encountered once, or only a few times in your life. After meeting them, you felt something difficult to explain. Not envy, not admiration, something closer to recognition, as if they embodied something you had always known, but never put into words. They didn't speak unnecessarily. They didn't explain themselves. They didn't rush to prove their point. They didn't fill silence with noise. They didn't seek approval in other people's eyes. They simply were. And in that state of being, there was something dense, complete, self-contained. The space around them reorganized itself. People began to listen. Decisions began to shift. Rooms began to belong to them. Without a single word about authority, without a single gesture of dominance. Machiavelli called this virtù, not virtue in the Christian sense, not moral purity, but inner structure, a force that comes from the ability to see reality as it is and act within it precisely, without sentimentality, without self-deception, without fear of judgment. Today, I will show you how to outgrow everyone around you. Silently, not through aggression, not through vulgar manipulation, but through understanding the real laws that govern human society, and through the discipline that turns understanding into power. The first and most painful lesson Machiavelli teaches is this: most people do not live in reality. They live in an interpretation of reality that protects their self-image. They see not what is, but what they want to see. This is not a character flaw. It is a fundamental feature of human psychology. Long before cognitive science had a name, Machiavelli wrote, "People in general judge more by appearances than by reality, because seeing is given to everyone, but understanding to few." He did not despise people for this. He simply observed, and that observation has a very real consequence. The one who can see essence through appearance possesses an advantage that cannot be bought, borrowed, or imitated in the modern world. This principle cuts even deeper. We live in an age built on appearances. Social media manufactures images, not reality. Career success is measured by titles, not depth of understanding. Relationships are photographed before they are lived. In this environment, the person who sees competence behind a title, mechanism behind public success, structure behind behavior, possesses what Machiavelli called the knowledge of the ruler, an understanding of how the game is actually played while everyone else plays. The version they were shown, but seeing is not enough. One of the most ignored lessons of the prince is that wisdom without action is not wisdom at all. It is luxury a luxury reserved for philosophers who seek nothing beyond personal peace. Machiavelli was not a theorist. He was a practitioner, a diplomat, an observer of real rulers. In real crises, he watched noble intentions collapse under pressure, and people without illusions survive and win. He understood something modern psychology would confirm. Centuries later, between understanding and action, there is a gap, and that gap is filled by only one thing: the habit of deciding. Not the habit of thinking about decisions, not the habit of planning decisions, but the habit of choosing. Under uncertainty, with incomplete information, and real risk, silence is not passivity. It is one of the most complex and underestimated tools of influence. Those who speak too much reveal their intentions, their weaknesses, their need for approval. They hand over the blueprint of their inner structure. Those who speak little and precisely create uncertainty, and people instinctively fill that uncertainty with projections of depth and authority. Psychology calls this authoritative silence. We assign weight to what we cannot immediately measure, and that assignment becomes real power in negotiations, in business, in relationships. Anywhere influence exists, the one who can hold a pause longer than the other possesses a structural advantage, because silence applies pressure, and the first person who breaks it has already conceded. Before saying anything meaningful, Machiavelli did not teach silence. As an aesthetic, he taught economy. Every word, every gesture, every action must cost exactly what it gives. Excess in communication is weakness, disguised as openness. Now, we move to the point. Most people try to soften, skip, or reinterpret when they encounter Machiavelli. He wrote, "A ruler who wishes to maintain power must learn how to make use of evil." For centuries, this sentence was torn from context and used to paint him as a cynic, or an advocate of tyranny. But context changes everything. He was not saying that cruelty is desirable. He was not glorifying violence or malice. He was describing a reality most people refuse to face. There are moments when avoiding a difficult decision out of fear, out of a desire to appear kind, out of an immature need to be loved by everyone, creates consequences far more destructive than the decision itself. Kindness applied at the wrong moment is not virtue. It is failure of leadership, and those who pay the price are rarely the ones who avoided the decision. In psychology, this is called permissiveness. When someone with responsibility, a leader, a parent, a manager, avoids necessary action because it is uncomfortable, and disguises that avoidance as patience or compassion, the result is always the same: a small problem, which could have been resolved quickly and precisely, grows into a systemic dysfunction, one that demands far greater pain from everyone involved. Machiavelli called this false humanity, and he saw it as one of the most dangerous traps for people who seek leadership without accepting the cost of leadership. To outgrow the people around you means, first of all, outgrowing your need for their approval. This sounds simple. It is not. It is one of the most psychologically demanding transformations a human being can undergo: the need for approval is wired into us evolutionarily. We are social creatures. Acceptance by the group once meant survival, but in a world where survival is no longer the primary challenge, this same need becomes a chain. It forces us to soften the truth, to avoid discomfort. It forces us to agree where we clearly see error. It forces us to shrink so others can feel comfortable. Machiavelli observed this in the rulers of his time and expressed it with surgical clarity. He who seeks to please everyone will perish at the hands of many. Modern psychology confirms this. In different language, people with a high need for approval consistently make decisions for immediate social comfort at the expense of long-term effectiveness, their own, and that of those they lead. Freedom from this need does not mean indifference to people. It means placing truth and outcome above temporary sympathy. And paradoxically, this is what creates the deepest and most durable respect. There is another principle Machiavelli articulated with rare clarity, one that remains just as relevant in corporations, politics, and personal ambition. As it was in Renaissance states, the nature of your enemy matters as much as the nature of your ally. Most people think about competition in linear terms. Who is stronger wins. Machiavelli thought structurally. What actually motivates your opponent? Where are their real interests? Not the declared ones. What is their tolerance for loss, for uncertainty? What are they protecting? Not as a strategist, but as a human being, out of fear, out of pride, out of attachment. The one who sees these dimensions never confronts strength directly. He works with motivation, with structure, with context. He finds the point where the opponent makes a choice that benefits you while sincerely believing it was their own decision. This is not manipulation. In the vulgar sense, it is understanding human nature applied strategically, and here Machiavelli aligns with modern behavioral economics, game theory, and neuroscience. Human beings do not decide in a vacuum of pure reason. They decide within emotion, habit, social norms, and predictable cognitive biases. If and only if you are willing to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. Growth in silence is growth without witnesses. This is one of the most counterintuitive principles in an age of constant exposure, where visible progress is often valued more than real progress. Machiavelli warned rulers against revealing intentions too early, not because secrecy is noble, but because unfinished plans, spoken aloud, attract resistance before they create momentum. When your intentions are known in advance, those threatened by them gain time to prepare. When you act from silence, results appear before opposition can organize. In modern life, this translates into discipline. Do not announce goals you have not yet achieved. Do not explain transformations you are still undergoing. Do not justify decisions to those who have no right to an explanation. People who constantly speak about their plans receive a substitute satisfaction from the telling itself, and that substitute quietly drains the energy required for action. Psychological research confirms this. Publicly declaring intentions reduces the likelihood of completing them because the brain partially interprets social recognition as completion. Silence preserves energy. Silence accumulates force. Silence allows growth to occur in such a way that by the time it becomes visible to others, .it is already irreversible. At this point, we arrive at the sentence that made Machiavelli infamous. It is better to be feared than loved. If you cannot be both. Most people stop here. They react emotionally. They imagine cruelty, oppression, cold domination, and in doing so, they miss the meaning entirely. Machiavelli was not comparing fear and love as emotions, he was comparing them as systems of reliability. Love is voluntary. It depends on mood, on circumstance, on personal benefit. It rises easily and it disappears just as easily when conditions change. Fear, on the other hand, is stable. It is rooted not in hatred, but in consequence. A person who fears consequences does not need to like you. To respect boundaries, this distinction matters. Machiavelli explicitly warned against hatred. Fear without hatred creates order. Hatred creates rebellion. The Stoic interpretation is not to rule through terror, but to establish predictability when consequences are consistent, clear, and inevitable, people adjust their behavior without emotional conflict. This is not tyranny. This is structure. In modern terms, authority collapses. Not when people dislike you, but when they believe. Rules can be bent without costs. A leader who constantly forgives violations does not appear kind. He appears weak, and weakness, once detected, invites testing, then exploitation, then chaos. Stoicism teaches the same principle. Through a different lens, control what depends on you, accept what does not. You cannot control. How others feel about you, you can control. The clarity of your standards and the certainty of your response, that is authority. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. A single outburst, followed by inconsistency, creates confusion. A calm, predictable response creates discipline. People do not fear the loud leader, they fear the consistent one. This is why Machiavelli emphasized the danger of appearing merciful without being firm. Mercy without structure is permission, and permission without limits destroys systems from the inside. Now we come to another uncomfortable truth. Dependence is not loyalty. If someone supports you only because they need you, their allegiance disappears. The moment an alternative appears, Machiavelli warned rulers never to confuse usefulness with loyalty. True allies share risk. They benefit when you succeed and suffer when you fail. Those who only gain without exposure will abandon you without hesitation. In modern life, this applies everywhere. In business, in politics, in friendships, even in family dynamics. If you are the only one sacrificing, you are not leading, you are being consumed. Stoic discipline demands clear boundaries. You help where it is virtuous. You withdraw where it enables weakness. This is not cruelty. This is realism. Another critical principle, often overlooked, is Machiavelli's view on fortune. He described fortune as a force that favors the prepared, not the hopeful, not the moral, not the deserving, the prepared. He compared fortune to a violent river. When calm, nourishes the land. When uncontrolled, it destroys everything in its path. The wise do not pray that the river never floods. They build banks, they reinforce structures before disaster arrives. Stoicism echoes this precisely. Do not expect life to be gentle. Expect it to test you and prepare accordingly. Preparation is not pessimism. It is respect for reality. Those who rely on luck are crushed when conditions change. Those who rely on structure adapt. And finally, we arrive at the quiet core of Machiavelli's philosophy. A point rarely stated directly, but present everywhere in his work. Appearances matter, not because truth is irrelevant, but because perception is the interface through which truth is received. You may be disciplined, but if you appear chaotic, you will be treated as such. You may be just, but if you appear inconsistent, you will be doubted. Stoicism does not reject appearances, it masters them. You do not perform virtue, you express it through action, timing, and restraint. You do not announce strength, you demonstrate it by remaining unmoved when others lose control. This is why Machiavelli insisted that a ruler must seem virtuous, even when forced to act against virtue, not because virtue is disposable, but because survival precedes ideals. A dead ruler cannot rule morally. A collapsed system cannot protect virtue. First, stability, then principle. This is not cynicism. It is hierarchy. At the end of this path, we face the question that most people avoid. If these principles are effective, why don't they corrupt everyone who applies them? The answer is simple, and uncomfortable. Power does not corrupt. It reveals what power exposes. Is not ambition, but discipline, or the absence of it. Machiavelli never advised rulers to abandon morality. He warned them not to confuse morality with fragility, virtue that collapses under pressure. It was never virtue, it was comfort. Stoicism draws the same line. Character is not proven in ease, it is proven under constraint. The disciplined individual does not use power to dominate others, but to govern himself. Without this inner governance, any external authority eventually becomes abuse. This is why Machiavelli's ideas are dangerous only to those who lack restraint. In the hands of the impulsive, strategy becomes manipulation. In the hands of the fearful, authority becomes cruelty. But in the hands of the disciplined, power becomes stability. The Stoic does not seek control for pleasure. He seeks control to prevent chaos. Internally first, externally second. This leads to the final distinction: manipulation acts for personal gain, wisdom acts for structural balance. Manipulation hides intentions. To deceive, wisdom withholds intentions. To allow outcomes to emerge without interference. The difference is not technique, it is motive. You can use the same tools to build a bridge or to set a trap. The tool is neutral, the character is not. Machiavelli understood this. Even if history chose to ignore it, his work was never meant for the reckless, it was meant for those willing to carry responsibility without illusion. Now consider how this applies to modern life. You may not rule a state, but you rule decisions, habits, boundaries, time. Every day you choose whether to lead yourself or to be governed by impulse, emotion, and social pressure. Stoic power begins privately. It begins with silence, where others seek validation with restraint, where others seek expression with preparation, where others seek hope. You do not announce discipline, you practice it. You do not explain boundaries, you enforce them quietly. You do not argue with chaos. You remove yourself from it. This is how power remains clean. This is how authority remains uncorrupted. And this is the final lesson. Machiavelli leaves us with, whether he intended it or not, reality does not reward intention. It rewards structure. It does not respond to desire. It responds to action. The Stoic does not complain that the world is unfair. He adjusts. He observes consequences without resentment. He acts without needing applause. And because of this, he becomes difficult to manipulate, difficult to intimidate, and impossible to control. Without consent, power, when aligned with discipline, becomes quiet, invisible, and nearly unstoppable.